It's December 23rd here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with the stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with the first Vice Foreign Minister's visit to the United States. Kim Hong-gyu is visiting the U.S. to hold talks with the outgoing Biden administration, as Seoul also gears up to work with the incoming Trump administration. South Korea's Shinsegae Group Chairman Chung Yong-jin met with President-elect Donald Trump and said Trump's team clearly understands the current political situation in South Korea. The special investigation team has secured and started to analyze President Yoon Suk-yeol's personal mobile phone call records, while the Constitutional Court is set to announce plans on how to deal with Yoon's refusal to accept impeachment trial-related documents. K-pop boy group Stray Kids tops Billboard's main album chart for the sixth time with the band's new album Hop, making them the first act to debut at #1 with their first 6 charting albums. The special investigation team has now gotten its hands on President Yoon Suk-yeol's personal phone call records from around the time he issued the martial law order earlier this month. Our Park Kwon-woo starts us off.
The special team investigating the declaration of martial law in early December has secured the call logs from President Yoon's personal cell phone. According to police officials on Sunday, investigators obtained a warrant for Yoon's phone to check details of calls with individuals related to the martial law order. Officials added they are also trying to find a separate secure phone known to have been used by Yoon to give orders during the period of martial law, along with his logs. The police also said a document containing orders to stop funding for the National Assembly's operations and organize the legislative body's budget under martial law has been obtained. The document was reportedly delivered to Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok during a cabinet meeting held before the temporary imposition of martial law. But Choi said last week that he does not recall much about the document.
It seemed like measures based on martial law. As soon as I saw it, we decided to ignore it and dismissed it.
After investigating 10 out of the 12 participants in the cabinet meeting held before martial law was declared, police officials said they concluded there were procedural and substantive flaws in the meeting. That's based on factors including the absence of meeting minutes. The prosecutor's office also investigated the Korea Defense Intelligence Command last week amid suspicions that personnel from the headquarters of Intelligence Detachment were deployed to arrest National Election Commission staff during the martial law period. Prosecutors have secured testimonies from KDIC staff. The joint investigation team consisting of the police, defense ministry, and the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials last Friday issued a second summons for President Yoon to appear for questioning this Wednesday. The first summons issued last Wednesday by the CIO went unanswered. The CIO plans to seek an arrest warrant for Yoon if he does not respond to the latest summons or if he does not give a specific reason for failing to appear before investigators on Wednesday. Park Kwon-woo, Arirang News.
And the Constitutional Court is expected to announce on Monday how it'll move forward as attempts to send key documents to President Yoon regarding his impeachment trial have failed. The court since last Monday has been trying to deliver notifications of Yoon's impeachment trial, a summons and preparations orders to Yoon through a posted email. Receiving the documents will require him to submit a response within 7 days. However, delivery to the president's residence was rejected by Yoon's staff, and a mail sent to the president's office was returned with the reason that the president was unavailable. The court is looking at ways to consider the documents legally delivered. Now, while the trial can proceed without the submission of a response, there are concerns the trial could be delayed if President Yoon's side fails to appoint legal representatives, refuses to attend, or claims more time is needed to review the documents. So the Constitutional Court is now weighing options to keep the impeachment trial on track. Let's discuss more with attorney An Jung-sung this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what options does the Constitutional Court have on the table at the moment?
Well, there are several options they can use it. Well, one of the things they can do, they can leave the court document at his place in Yongsan, or they can apply the mailbox rule, which becomes effective upon mailing. So they have, but the both options, it become effective as of today. So one more thing is that the KCC has confirmed that the preliminary hearing will be held on the 27th as scheduled. So
Right.
I think that they will keep that timeline. They apply the options, they use it within the time frame. So that's the important. The 27th is the schedule.
Right, that is this Friday. Then, sir, which of the options you've just mentioned do you think the court will eventually pick to manage the issue, today?
Well, I think that they might try both options at the same time, so that they'll provide no option for them, no excuse for them, because basically, so the both option in a way that it became effective today, so that they got 27, so that's have about the 4 days to prepare. So I think they might use both options from my expectation. Right.
Right, they will have to go with an option that makes the hearing happen this Friday. And also, at the same time, the CIO, Corruption Investigation Office, has set Christmas Day, this Wednesday, as the day for Yoon to appear for a summons for the second time. Now, how likely do you think he will appear or show up this time? I mean, speaking from Yoon's perspective, what might be his intention for not showing up again?
Well, for the answer to the first question was that, well, nobody knows when he show up. And second answer to a second question is that I think, well, as you know, I mean, both people expected they're using the delay tactics. So I guess try to save more time for preparation or some other, strategy, try to delay it. But however, from the legal perspective or litigation's perspective, it's not always good to delay, the procedure, because that overwork, it can be used against him at court. So seriously. So I guess that maybe it's time for him to really speed up the process.
It's already the second summons request by the CIO. Now, what other actions can the CIO can take if Yoon decides not to appear again? Are they going to issue another summons request?
Yeah, I guess that's a judgment call for the CIO. I mean, because it's not only a legal issue, it's also a very political issue. So I think that they want to wait and see how the KCC make decision today. And they might do, to follow it, whatever KCC take actions they take it. So I think they might want to see how cases do it, and then they might follow the same way, the procedural way, better.
Well, what Yoon's legal team is arguing is that the team is not done forming its members. The question is, can they take as much time as they want?
No. It's very interesting. If you are litigating as an individual citizen, it's not going to be too much, he has too much advantage as being a current sitting president, because that if you're individual during litigation or civil or criminal case, the court would not wait for you, right? So basically what happened was that in Korea, legal representation is an option, it's not a requirement for the litigation. So failure to form a legal team is not an excuse at a court. So it might give some time, provide him more time for him, but it eventually work against him in the long run. So I guess that he's losing his valuable time to defend himself, in effective way. So his killing time is not always a good option for litigation perspective.
Well, I just asked you all these questions because there are concerns that this could possibly cause a delay in the impeachment trial process. How likely is that scenario?
Well, actually, I doubt so. I don't think the KCC will delay their schedule, because it's like they only have 180 days to make a determination. It's long, but it looks long, but it's very short for them to make this determination. It's very complicated cases. The constitutional cases always complicated and very political. So I guess that I don't think they're going to delay it. They will proceed it, or whether or not he show up or receive it, because they can take it and consider it as he received, so legally. So that's the thing. I think they're gonna proceed it as scheduled.
Well, let's see what the Constitutional Court decides to do this afternoon. Thank you so much for sharing your insight with us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And in the meantime, first Vice Foreign Minister Kim Hong-kyun is in Washington for talks with the outgoing Biden administration. He says he's already spoken to the Trump team to explain the situation in South Korea, including President Yoon facing impeachment. Lee Seung-jae has more.
South Korea's first Vice Foreign Minister Kim Hong-kyun is visiting the United States for talks with the outgoing Biden administration as Seoul prepares for the incoming Trump administration. Talking to reporters at Dulles International Airport on Sunday, Kim said the Yoon administration has been communicating with the Trump team since before the U.S. presidential election. He added that the administration has explained the situation in South Korea, including the emergency martial law incident and the current impeachment proceeding against President Yoon Suk-yeol. When asked how Trump's team perceives the situation in South Korea, Kim said that as the whole world has witnessed, South Korea's democracy has shown how resilient it is, adding that they'll clearly understand the situation. The South Korean envoy explained that there are no plans to meet with anyone from the Trump side during his visit. Meanwhile, South Korean retail conglomerate Shinsegae Group chairman Jung Yong-jin said Saturday that he had a brief talk with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. Speaking to Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency from Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, Jung said he spoke to Trump for around 10 to 15 minutes. While Jung was tight-lipped about his meeting with Trump, he explained that Trump's team showed interest in the current situation in South Korea.
Korea is a country with potential, so please trust and wait. We will quickly return to normal. That's all I said.
His brief meeting with the U.S. president-elect came as he stayed at Mar-a-Lago Resort at the invitation of Donald Trump Jr. The SSG chairman is the first South Korean known to have met Trump since his win in November. Jung refrained from further disclosing the details of his talk with Trump, but said the U.S. president-elect made no special indication toward South Korea. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
South Korea's military has successfully launched its third reconnaissance satellite to better monitor threats from North Korea. The domestically developed satellite, which was launched from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California on Saturday, is capable of capturing images day and night regardless of weather conditions. It'll go through operational testing over the next few months before carrying out surveillance and reconnaissance missions. The latest launch is part of South Korea's plan to deploy 5 spy satellites by 2025 to monitor the North with its own satellite network. Seoul launched its first spy satellite in December last year and a second one back in April. Once all 5 satellites are placed in orbit, the military will reportedly be able to monitor a specific North Korean target every 2 hours. K-pop group Stray Kids has topped the BIllboard 200 album chart for the 6th time in their career with their new album Hop. According to BIllboard on Sunday, the album debuted at #1 and making it 6 albums in a row to debut at #1 on the main album chart. Now, no act has debuted at #1 with its first 6 chart entries in BIllboard's near 69-year history. The feat means Stray Kids is tied with BTS, Linkin Park, and Dave Matthews Band for the most #1 albums on Billboard 200 since 2000. And K-culture is penetrating Northern Europe with its music and movies, and Sweden is no exception. Our culture correspondent Song Yujin has this report.
The birthplace of ABBA, Spotify, and IKEA, Sweden has long been celebrated for its creativity and cultural innovation. This month, Stockholm became home to the Korea Creative Content Agency Sweden, the agency's first branch in Northern Europe.
We've seen growing interest in K-pop among teens and young adults, with Swedish musicians contributing as songwriters and producers. Given Sweden's global reputation in gaming, with titles like Minecraft and Candy Crush Saga, we plan to focus on collaboration in music and gaming.
Take Stockholm's K-pop non-stop dance academy, for example. Starting with just 2 classes and 20 students in 2015, it has grown to over 15 classes with a community of 200 students.
Before, it was more of a niche thing like K-pop, so it wasn't very widely accepted. It's not only singing and dancing, but it's also like the performance. And I also liked how you get to learn to know the idols more as a person and not just as an artist.
But it's only recent years that this interest has started to flourish. So after opening Northern Europe's first Korean cultural center last year, Sweden has now welcomed KOKA Sweden, the first Korea Creative Content Agency's branch in the region.
Northern Europe historically had limited access to Korean culture due to its geographic distance and lack of dedicated cultural institutions. But with the rise of digital platforms, people here have begun to explore K-pop, Korean dramas, and more.
The opening of the Korean Cultural Center Sweden last year was a turning point. Since its launch in May 2023, the center has hosted a range of events, from K-pop festivals to Korean food seminars, establishing itself as a hub for promoting Korean culture not just in Sweden, but across Northern Europe. Director Lee Kyung-jae says there's a reason why Korean culture is spreading so quickly in Sweden.
Swedes are known for immersing themselves in their interests. For example, instead of simply enjoying kimchi at restaurants, many choose to learn how to make it themselves. Our center is serving as a space where they can share their passions and discover new aspects of Korean culture that are hard to access online.
This passion was evident among the students taking Korean language classes at the center.
You can tell this from the amount of Korean restaurants opening, the amount of Korean foods available in different Asian food stores. There is a bigger interest in Korean music. You can see Korean artists coming to play here.
People are getting more and more interested, and also having this culture institute opening up here as well. I think it's interesting to know more about Korea, because we know a little bit about Korea, but maybe not about a lot of the culture. So it's good to have all the other things that we don't know about Korea, like literature and food.
By bridging cultures, these two institutions are not only strengthening ties between Sweden and Korea, but also laying the foundation for deeper connections between Korea and Northern Europe. 송유진, Arirang News, Stockholm.
And now let's take a look at the stories from around the world with our Kim Seong. Good morning, Seong.
Good morning, Dami.
Seong, we have to start with the Christmas market attack over in Germany. What's the latest?
Yes, that's right. The police investigations are in full swing following Friday evening's horrific attack in the German city of Magdeburg. Now, the suspect, who was identified by the German authorities as a 50-year-old Saudi doctor, has been remanded in custody after allegedly killing 4 women and a 9-year-old boy and injuring some 200 more by driving a car into crowds at a Christmas market. The suspect, who has been named as Taleb al-Abdul-Mohsen in the local media, was brought before a judge on Saturday evening and ordered to a pre-trial detention for 5 counts of murder, multiple attempted murder and multiple counts of dangerous bodily harm. Now, German Interior Minister Nancy Faeser said investigations would look into how authorities responded to earlier warnings, such as online death threats made by the suspect and information given by the Saudi government, which is apparently ignored by its German counterpart. Now, al-Abdul-Mohsen was granted asylum by Germany in 2016 after arriving in the country in 2006. According to his social media account, he supported anti-Islam views and far-right political parties. US President-elect Donald Trump has said that Russian President Vladimir Putin has expressed his interest in discussing the war in Ukraine as soon as possible. Trump, who has previously said he could end the Russian-Ukraine war in 24 hours, said at Turning Point's America Fest convention on Sunday that Putin is eager to meet him and that we have to end that war. The US president-elect has previously criticized incumbent President Joe Biden's policy change, allowing Ukraine to use US-supplied weapons to strike Russian territory, and said Ukraine will possibly receive less military aid from the US when he takes office. Russian President Putin said in an interview with local media on Sunday that Russia is ready to normalize relations with the US and the West, but without detriment to interests of the Russian Federation. Tens of thousands of protesters gathered in Serbia's capital, Belgrade, on Sunday in a move against President Aleksandar Vučić and his ruling Serbian Progressive Party, demanding the government's accountability over the collapse of a railway station roof last month that killed 15 people. Following the collapse of the recently renovated roof of Novi Sad station on November 1st, opposition leaders and members of the public blamed government corruption and nepotism. Now, Novi Sad station had been renovated twice in recent years in large-scale projects involving Chinese state companies. Prosecutors have so far arrested 13 people over the collapse, including a government minister, after Vučić said he will hold those responsible to account. Spain's traditional Christmas lottery, El Gordo de la Primitiva, with the world's largest total prize pot of some $2.8 billion, announced its winning numbers in a broadcast on Sunday. Now, as per tradition, the lottery draw was televised in a 4-hour broadcast from Madrid's Teatro Real, where students from San Ildefonso School picked the winning numbers and sang them out. The tradition, which dates back over 200 years to 1812, began as a way to raise funds to fight for Spain's independence against the occupying French forces. Nowadays, the remaining proceeds after payouts to lucky winners are donated to social causes.
The harsh chill continues this morning with cold wave alerts in place for much of the northern parts of South Korea. It felt like -7 degrees Celsius in the capital, but you know Monday's morning commute always feels much colder. Meanwhile, today's afternoon temperatures will go up higher than yesterday, so the midwinter cold should ease when the sun is at its brightest. But brace yourselves as tomorrow morning will be even colder than today. Now, today's highs will be around the norms in much of Korea, topping out at 4 degrees Celsius in the capital, Gwangju at 7 degrees, Daegu, Gyeongju at 8 degrees. Sunny skies in most parts except in Gwangju and Jeju this afternoon. Temperatures make improvements heading into the Christmas holiday. After a freezing start tomorrow, readings will be more bearable for any outdoor plans. Meanwhile, Jeju and parts of southern regions will have a mix of rain and snow at the end of the week, with freezing air making its comeback. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That wraps up our Monday edition of New Day at Arirang. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful start to the week.
How to survive in Korea. One room. So, you're surviving in Korea if you signed a contract for a one room. Obviously, you're a pro. But the real deal begins now. Step 1. Housewarming. No need to buy toilet paper, diffusers or hand soap. You'll get them soon enough as housewarming gifts. And some are bound to pile up. There's nothing better to serve your guests than milpaeyu nabe. If you have Korean friends coming over, don't forget the extra garlic. Step 2. Garbage disposal. With great power comes great responsibility. You've had a good time, so let's get to work. It might be tempting to sweep everything into a trash can, but you have to separate your garbage. Not bothered? Beware that negligence is punished with a fine or public humiliation. Step 3. Drying rack. You're excited to live alone in Korea, but the fate of these items, hanger, storage, or a hanger. Go get fresh coffee outside. Jogging doesn't cost anything, and nothing beats instant rice. But keep one item around so that you don't get too lonely. Step 4. Pros of living alone. No mum. Cons of living alone. No, Mum. A new towel doesn't magically appear. You have to do the laundry regularly. If anyone gives a towel as a souvenir, take it. Get rid of mold immediately. Don't be lazy with the vacuum cleaner. Housework is an endless affair. Overwhelmed? Give your mum a call and thank her for everything she's done. Did you survive in your one room? Wait, you have an unwanted visitor. Call someone you fancy. Could be the right person for the job.
Step into a world where culture speaks beyond words, bridging hearts and minds. Hello, this is your DJ Sujung for Culture Crunch. Crunch on a new flavour of K-culture with me every day.
We are here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We're News Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Monday, December 23rd here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and you're watching News Generation. Today, we're joined by Chester Dae-sung.
Happy Monday, everyone.
Happy Monday. And Ki Kim.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. That both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. So it's Monday, time to talk about the latest topics trending among the younger generation here in Korea. And today, we're continuing our discussion on the fresh and creative ways young people here in the country have been engaging in politics. And this was evident, as mentioned last week, during the protests against President Yoon Suk-yeol's surprise declaration of martial law. So we touched on this last week, but it's worth noting again how our generation was very much active and involved in these demonstrations, right?
Yes. So since the December 3rd martial law declaration, there have been several public demonstrations that have been happening. And one thing that is particularly noteworthy is that we have a lot of millennials and Gen Z that participated and actually brought a different energy to the whole protest scene. So as we will discuss today, we're talking about everything from using K-pop songs to using the light bulb that they use at the K-pop concert. As you can see, some people even used carol songs to even cheer up the mood. And they're using a variety of like very, very catchy flags that they customized and are really bringing a sort of a dynamism that we haven't seen in previous public protests that used to be kind of heavy and more on the serious side.
Right, because before, mostly people used candle lights that we saw during the 2016 protests demanding the impeachment of then President Park Geun-hye. But this time, as you mentioned, these protests were more like K-pop concerts.
Yeah, so much dynamism and almost excitement.
Like a festive mood.
Exactly, yeah.
Right, so young people definitely introduced a new mood to these protests this time. Then besides this, I want to ask you, Ki, what stood out to you the most related to these young people-led demonstrations?
Like both of you said, it became sort of like a young festival, young people singing, dancing, waving the flags and all. But it was admirable because what was interesting was that they were very mature. All the protests, I would say, were peaceful in a non-violent way. There are a few cases where there are people who had different political views, of course, had some crashes and some struggles, yet most of them showed orderly fashion. They picked up the trash after the protest to clean the street. Some created manuals and maps for the participants to for their convenience. There's no discrimination about who participates. They didn't care gender, age, nationality, hometown, as long as they share their same belief. Even many foreign media covered the K-protest that they showed a true democracy.
Right, so definitely the protests that we saw this time led by our generation were very vibrant, energetic, festive, orderly, and peaceful. So while we've mostly talked about the new protest culture among young people here on NewsGen from last week, now these rallies weren't the only way young people voiced their opinions. So what were some other creative approaches, Cheska?
I mean, obviously, we cannot forget to mention social media when we talk about millennials and Gen Z. So they've definitely created a lot of very interesting viral challenges to promote on social media. And I personally Googled some of them myself, but there were some very catchy songs that they used, including like Rosé's Apart, like a K-pop song, to, as we just talked about, like a carol song, because we're only 2 days away from Christmas, surprisingly. But another thing that kind of caught my attention was they created and customized flags that has extremely catchy logos. Some were very irrelevant to the actual protest. So I'm talking about, quote, you know, the Federation of People Who Ride Line 6, or like the conglomeration of cat owners. Or there was one where it's like a group of people who wanted to stay home but were forced to come out. So these shows the creative side. And I would say even the creativeness to see the silver lining, even in a time when it can be very destructive or for some people very bleak. And the other thing is the foreign media outlet like New York Times covered several articles related to this very interesting social protest, and there were multitude of titles like using memes, satire to sort of like revitalize the protest scene here in South Korea. So I think even the foreign media outlet is quite surprised and was curious about what's going on here.
Because we've never seen something like before here in Korea, and I think in many parts of the world. And I think what's especially very interesting is that the responses from young people that you mentioned, they were very quick. They were clever and they were witty at the same time. So I want to ask you guys, what do you think enabled them to act so swiftly?
Well, we talked about this last week when we were talking about K-protest. As soon as martial law was declared, the military and police were, of course, fast enough to be headed to the National Assembly building and some of the other important buildings. But citizens were faster, and they were even faster than the major broadcasters. They turned on their smartphones, start live streaming the situation in real time, YouTubers turned on their YouTube live and showed everything that's taking place. And injures, of course, actually wrote what they think on the screen as a message. And we can get all different sorts of information from so many different platforms nowadays, besides the conventional media such as TV or radio that you're watching right now. We witnessed many college students also declaring the state of affairs. Now, back in 80s, college students back then too participated in protests, but it was hard for them to actually voice up because they were being oppressed by the police and the new government. Police used tear gas, they beat them up even, or some even died during the protests or after being tortured. You can actually see that from movies such as 1987, with Kang Dong starring in it. And but this time around, 2,000 college students from 31 universities around the nation gathered in front of the National Assembly building to officially launch the Council for the Declaration of the State of the Affairs on the impeachment of President Yoon. What's interesting is that there were so many females also getting involved. The females from 20s and 30s, they were actually participating for this impeachment motion and to show their political views.
Right. So this time we definitely saw a wider and more diverse demographic taking part and leading the charge in these protests. Now, so far we focused on the public side, but interestingly, it wasn't just the general public who took part in these movements this time, because some celebrities from our generation also garnered a lot of attention for their unique ways of supporting these movements. And this caught many off guard here in Korea, because here in the country, public figures, especially celebrities, they tend to avoid political topics, voicing political opinions, as neutrality is often seen as a virtue, right?
Exactly. For me, myself, because I've been broadcast for nearly 20 years, and I try not to show any of my political aspect on any circumstances, on any event. But many celebrities and stars voiced their opinions too as well. For example, the actress Go Min-si encouraged her fans and young people to participate in a protest, uploaded a picture with lots of clapping hands, saying that the citizens are true owner when the impeachment motion was passed at the National Assembly. And actor Lee Jun-hyuk, Kim Jae-ho, singer Tony Yan from HOT, and Lee Sung-wan, of course, is known to show his political view all the time, even performed at the protest, and all used their social media account to share their thoughts. And some share their old school's declaration of the state of affairs, and on their account, IU, New Jeans, and Yuri from the 소녀시대, they pre-purchased a coffee or food around this gathering area for the participants and fans. But others who have different political views also share their thoughts on their social media accounts. So nowadays, the stars and celebrities are saying and showing their political views.
Right. So this is definitely something that we didn't see in the past. This is something that we're seeing, a new addition to the protest culture that we saw this time. But on the other hand, with celebrities' involvement, there were also some unexpected backlash too.
Yeah, and I think this is something that is very worth talking related to today's topic, because most of the time, public figures do like to maintain neutrality. But in this particular case, and I think it's great that we live in a generation where there are so many avenues, including social media and whatnot, to voice our opinions, but I don't think we should mistake that to think we can just aggressively attack one another. And I think some of that happened to some celebrities and public figure, like people were aggressively messaging people and asking them to voice.
Why aren't you voicing on your opinion?
Exactly. And unfortunately, one of the very famous national trot singer, Im Young-woo, he supposedly responded to one of the messages in a very terse response that kind of almost enrages some of the fans in terms of not using his voice or his popularity to make a voice in a current situation. But I think it is also very important to know that when it comes down to politics, which is an extremely sensitive and divisive issue,
especially for public figures.
Exactly. We should never ever force someone to say something or believe in something that they might not be willing to do so. So I think that is one of the backlashes that we've been seeing.
Right, because not really voicing your opinion is one's freedom and right as well.
Absolutely, and that's the whole point of democracy, right? We can't force someone to believe in something that they choose not to. So I think in terms of the fact that we're talking about millennials and Gen Z participating in demonstration as one of the positives of democratic society, but I think another positive is that we let people choose what they want to believe,
definitely. And talking about participating in politics, political participation today goes far far beyond just joining a political party or voting, because as our panelists mentioned, from K-pop concert-style protests to social media challenges and even prepaying for demonstrators' needs, our generation has found unconventional ways to make their voices heard. So I want to ask, as part of the younger generation, what's your take on this fresh new ways of political involvement?
I think it's so great, as we just mentioned, that we live in a time where we are actually able to so actively, and even I would say, be encouraging enough to participate in ways that can make something as serious or heavy as political demonstration that Kion, as you mentioned in the past, was sometimes very brutal and violent and very sad, into something that is more dynamic, festive, accessible and inclusive. I think that's a great positive. But I think one thing that we should be careful about is that we don't sway too much to one side, that we forget that what we are trying to do or what we're trying to represent in an issue like this. Because I think it is so great that people are, gathering together for an issue that we find important, but I don't want the crowd to be just swept by the festivity, that we think it's a fanfare rather than something being responsible citizens. So I do hope that people become a little bit more knowledgeable in what they represent. Yeah.
Right. For example, why we are doing these protests, what this movement is like striving for.
Right, what we're trying to achieve. Yeah, the end goal is more important
than the means.
Exactly, yes.
Then what do you think, Ki?
Well, I think what's going on right now is not exactly a favorable situation for the Republic of Korea as a whole, as a nation, because, like having a protest and having an impeachment motion within the country would not be so much a favorable and diplomatic relationship. And we have so many other problems, other issues that we have to deal with: the finance, economy, real estate problem, the price, and all the things. There's so many different things, geopolitical issues, war going on in Ukraine and some other places. But it's important that we're actually going through this process. It's what democracy is all about. Like Cheska said, younger generation now appreciate how our fathers and mothers fought for this country to win that democracy and that power. And hopefully this could also smoothen the generational conflict that we face right now between the different generations, because we're so apart. After this long time, I'm sure there will be a brighter future.
Right. Although this process may be tough, this is indeed a way that our generation is learning democracy and democratic values.
Sure.
Right. And to listen to more opinions, we also asked our viewers what they thought about the political expressions shown by young Koreans recently, and here's what 3 of them had to say. Our first comment for this Monday, Chip Bauer 361, it's always the young who stand up to what they think is wrong. Korean protests have been extremely effective with no violence. The King's Kid FOR, those young people are participating in politics today so that they can shape their future and not just be victims of those in authority. DS191284 says they are standing up for true democracy. It's an admirable act. So after the break, we'll be joined by a young person who took part in these demonstrations this time to share his experience. Stay tuned.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
Welcome back. Today we're joined by Kang Kyung-dong, a Korean millennial. Welcome, Kyung-dong, to the show. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Thank you for joining us. So, Kyung-dong, I want to ask you, how did you choose to express your thoughts on the recent martial law declaration here in South Korea and its aftermath?
I'm not generalizing, but young men in their 20s and 30s around me don't usually express political opinions. I'm actually in the same way, especially with close friends, whether male or female. I rarely talk about politics. This is even more true on social media. However, this situation was kind of different. As soon as I saw the news about martial law being declared, I immediately informed people through KakaoTalk group chats as well as private chats. I discussed the meaning and the implications of the martial law and publicly expressed my opinion that it was wrong. Sharing such opinions was very different from how I behaved in the past. In fact, this might be the most active political participation I've ever shown in my life. Especially, I was really surprised that I shared my political opinions with people around me from the time martial law was lifted until the impeachment proceedings took place.
You know, we find it really interesting, and you mentioned it quite eloquently. Not many people in their 20s and 30s like to talk about politics or share their views. So what motivated you to join this movement, and have you ever participated in similar protests?
As I mentioned earlier, this could be considered significant political participation on my part. The reason is that the martial law holds different meanings for Koreans. Martial law and the history of democratic development in Korea have almost gone hand in hand. Honestly, I never thought something like this would happen in my lifetime. When political issues arose before, I would simply organize my thoughts internally and keep them to myself. To summarize, I strongly felt that this was totally inappropriate, and it reached a point where I could no longer remain silent. That seemed to be the biggest reason for my active participation.
Well, looking at the future, maybe a couple of years from now, for decades from now, what changes or development do you hope to see in Korean politics?
Well, when we look at the current political situation closely, both ruling and opposition parties seem to operate like one-man authoritarian regimes. Because of this, cooperation seems more distant, and political parties appear to pursue the interest of individuals with power and their supporters only. As a citizen, I reckon it's such a waste of time to participate in politics when it does not promote our personal or public interest. Above all, I hope that politicians will focus on improving the economy and welfare of citizens through proper legislation and meaningful reforms. And also hope that this chaotic political situation should be stabilized immediately. Thank you.
Definitely. All right, Kyung-dong, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your experience today, and hope you have a great start to the new week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, so ending off, our generation, we mentioned this several times on NewsGen last week, has often been criticized for political apathy, likely because we haven't experienced military rule or felt our democracy was at risk. We've only heard about these struggles from our parents, history books, or the media, but the night of December 3rd served as a wake-up call for many, as Kyung-dong mentioned, reminding us that the freedoms and rights we enjoy today weren't easily won. So as we're now being recognized as an emerging political active demographic, what do you think is the most effective and meaningful way for young people to engage in politics?
I think there are two very important things when it comes to politics. One is political awareness and political acceptance. I think, as we just mentioned before, it is so great that we're living in a time where we are able to very freely voice our opinions, but that also requires us the responsibility to be aware of exactly what we're trying to say. And another thing is political acceptance. As we said, we live in a democratic society. So if we start hurting other people or attacking someone because of different views, then we're only going to create the chaos that we fought so hard to be away from. So even though there's a lot of protests and demonstration going on, I really hope that we're still able to accept different opinions and really find ways to quickly stabilize what is going on today.
Right, so being aware, responsible, and also accepting at the same time. Please share your thoughts too, Ki.
Well, like Cheska said, I really agree with her saying that we have a different opinions and political view. It's not wrong.
Exactly.
They're all working to make have a better life for everybody, and everything needs a constant care. So it should not be a one-time deal. People gathered because it was an alarming situation. When I think of the late '90s, when we suffered from the economical crisis back in those days, and got help from the IMF, we showed remarkable recovery. We had pan-national gold collecting movement. Some even donated their wedding rings for this country. So we can tell many of us are very patriotic, and we do think of others, and we do think of our nation. What we should do is keep showing the support, so this momentum could be carried on. It was not just because a president declared a martial law this time, so we're going to protest. And just like Cheska said, oh, okay, we did protest. Okay, what do we do this for? We have to constantly show our support for politics. And the simplest way maybe is exercising our very own right, which is voting. Participate in an election,
listen to what each politician is saying, and listen to what other politicians are saying, because they're saying this because they have some belief, they have some I don't know, background information how to make people's life better. That's what our politicians, congressmen, and president exist, right? So listen to the others and try to accept them. And you know, it's not about a dogfight. You know, it's about making people's life better. So you know, try to listen to them. Cast your vote.
And this is all to protect the democratic values that were hardly fought, not just from our parents' generation, but what we're fighting for right now.
Right.
And that's all from Houston today, but we'll be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks today to Cheska Dainho.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ki Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching, and see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.